Training camp opens in a week. So what should we have our eye on? What questions do we want to get answered? Fox 6's Lily Zhao is back with us. We are almost in the season, which means Zhao You Doing is back for a training camp preview.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. You will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Make every moment more. With the playoffs in basketball and hockey behind us, the sports just aren't sportsing like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Lily Zhao on the program with us today to get us set for training camp. Things she wants to see, players she's excited to see actually play football. This is the closest approximation we will get to football for the first time for most of these guys. And so to get us ready for all of that, Lily is with us this week. Remember, we have just, I think 3, we might do 4 shows depending on what we can schedule this week. I am technically on vacation this week, but we're still doing shows because that's what we do. We get you ready. We get you excited for training camp. We will be back in full force once training camp starts. So wanted to get you some fun stuff before we get into all that. Speaking of, let's get into it with Lily. Joining me now and back for another glorious season of everyone's favorite Zhao You Doing, Lily Zhao from Fox 6 in Milwaukee to get us ready for training camp and answer the question that has been on everyone's mind for months. Lily, Zhao You Doing?
Oh, Peter, I am doing well. It's the off season. We're kind of taking a breath here, just enjoying other things going on in the summer. It's warm. It's a little too warm sometimes, but I can't complain because as we all know in Wisconsin, it'll get cold in like a month.
Yeah.
So we're going to relish the time, but it's been nice to kind of just be off and, enjoying the fruits of our labors and taking some time, taking some vacation. But I'm excited because we're doing Zhao You Doing. It means football is kind of right around the corner. So I'm doing well. Zhao You Doing?
I'm good. I can't wait for football to be back. The next few weeks are always the longest on the calendar for me. We talk about like the game, the day after the All-Star break, and like you get July 4th, and July 4th is awesome. But then it's like, oh crap, like we have like 2 more weeks before training camp. Yeah. And then it's another month before like we even think about the regular season. And then even then it's another 2 weeks after. And it's just like, okay, so let's just be excited about training camp now. I am also team summer is not the best season, by the way. I think it's the fall, not just for football. I think summer is overrated. I hate being hot. You can put on a sweater, you can put on a coat. There is like no salve. If it's hot, you are just out of luck, especially if you're outside. So let's talk about training camp because last year we had a lot of questions, Jordan Love and this new receiver room and all this stuff that was really exciting to see on the field. I don't feel like we have that many more answers this year. Even though we answered some of those like Jordan Love questions and the receiver questions, but now the defense is going to be this whole other thing. There's all these new guys. So when you think about, okay, camp opens, and we're going to get to see these guys for the first time, what's the #1 thing where you're like, I can't wait to see this?
I am excited when we're talking about the defensive side of the football. It's once they get the pads on, What's everything going to look like? What's the energy level? What's the intensity level? What's Jeff Hafley going to be like with these guys? I want to see them hitting the sleds. I want to see them hitting each other. And then the joint practices, I think that'll be really energetic. Once
Lily wants the carnage. She wants those pads crackling.
Right. I'm like, once we get the joint practices, though, that'll be really intriguing to see kind of the defensive side of what they do. But I'm very optimistic from what I've heard from these guys, from Rashawn Gary, Keyshawn Nixon, etc., about how they've talked about Jeff Hafley and this new scheme and what he wants to do with them. He wants to unleash his guys. He wants them to get after the quarterback, attack the football. That's what I'm really intrigued to see. Like, I just want to see how this scheme will kind of start forming and how guys will get more comfortable. And then, I also have my eye on Kalen King, that 7th round corner.
Yeah.
Because he's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder. He was emotional during his presser. I'm excited to see what that kid can do as well.
Yeah, that is not someone that we have talked a lot about on this show. And I think I'm going to have to change that, because he is someone who I think is going to pop when we get into one-on-ones and into preseason, especially, he's going to get some of those like third quarter kind of reps against fringe NFL roster players. And I don't think that's the kind of talent he is, which means he's going to shine, I think, potentially. You are a resident vibes expert, Lily. So I have a couple vibes questions that I want to ask you. You mentioned Jeff Hafley. I have been kind of blown away by the Jeff Hafley vibes. And I know that it's a very small sample size, but what is your temperature check, the vibe check with Jeff Hafley? What have you thought of him just in the limited glimpses we've gotten just to hear from him?
Right. Knowledgeable, big football guy, excited to go to work. And I think excited to really not revamp, but just make this defense, better and have it hit the potential it really can with the players that it has. Right. We've talked about for years now, just how many D1 picks, D1 picks, but first round picks this defense has had. And just, they've kind of been up and down and up and down. But now it's, can you get them at a level where they're consistently good and pressuring the quarterback and getting those turnovers? But again, just from the small sample sizes that we've heard of Jeff Hafley, that we've seen of him, I think he's very knowledgeable. I think he's a great fit. He works well with Matt LaFleur, obviously why LaFleur brought him into the coaching staff. And I think he's just kind of has a way of just getting that extra oomph out of his guys, right? And that's what you want out of a defensive coordinator. These guys look they look refreshed, they look ready to go, but I think they look excited, and I think they're excited about the opportunities. We see Jair Alexander, being more of a participant, and he's a bigger leader on this team, so he's showing up, he's doing the work, and even hearing him talk about it gets you even more excited.
Yeah, I had a superintendent back when I covered news. I said her phrase was, kids vote with their feet. If they don't show up to school, it's because you're not engaging them. Now, I understand Jair is a professional athlete getting paid to do a job, but if you engage them, they're going to want to be there. And I think that, like, Eric Stokes saying, this is the first time since I've been here, he was drafted in 2021, that Jair has taken part in OTAs. That made me stand up in my chair a little bit, because I was like, okay, that's a Jeff Hafley thing. That's a no more Joe Barry thing. That could be a Xavier McKinney thing. Like, there's a lot of reasons why that might be different. But when you engage with these players, it just has a way of changing their attitude on these things. And that leads me to the next vibe question that I want to ask you about. We have heard already from the players and then from media people covering the team that there is a different sort of air about this team, a confidence, a chemistry. And when you have Mike Clemens, God bless Mike Clemens, one of my favorite people, he is not someone who speaks in hyperbole or is prone to just throw out takes. And he said he cannot remember a vibe, a confidence, a swagger on the Packers like this. Is that something that you have noticed in hearing from these guys as well?
Yes, because I think last offseason going into that first year under Jordan Love, again, we talked about it. You're not sure what you're going to get. It's his first year as a starter. You have all these young players, especially at wide receiver and tight end. How is that offense going to mesh? And as we saw, it took a little bit of time that they got there. I think the fact that they got there, I think the fact that they made it as far as they did in the playoffs, and knowing that the potential for a Super Bowl was still out there with Jordan Love as a first-year starting quarterback, that just kind of brings a lot of we should have made it further, right? We could have made the Super Bowl, and that was going to be their threshold, right? I think for me, it was, can they even make the playoffs? They well exceeded that. So now that you have this foundation set, right, this base set, your offense knows what they're doing. They're coming back in a second year together. They're clicking. They're confident. You bring in a defensive coordinator who's getting the best out of his players. And it's a new scheme where This is a Packers team that believes they can have a championship defense for the first time probably since they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
They have a right to feel this way, and they have a right to feel this way because now they're in a conference that really truly will challenge them because they're going to get the best out of every team in the NFC North this season, I believe. But they're a very confident team for a reason, and I like seeing that from them because I think game 1 against the Eagles in Brazil, I think will be kind of let's let these guys tee off kind of thing, right? Game 1, I'm excited to see that too.
Back with Lily Zhao in just a second here on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much. I really do. I love them so much I never want them to stop. But with the playoffs in our rearview mirror, the NBA, NHL, and in the case of the NBA, some underwhelming playoffs, we get fewer games. And the sports just aren't sportsing like I like them to. But you want to get excited about the Brewers? Hey, plenty to be excited about with the Brewers. But FanDuel lets me keep sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And let me tell you, I am very often in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. You can get football futures if you're already getting frisky that way. You've got baseball futures. You can bet game to game. There's still plenty of golf to get excited about. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Back with Lily in just a second. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Listen, the Jeff Hafley bit, just he's the kind of coach that every fan wants their defensive coordinator to be, just from an approach standpoint, because he will bring the heat. He will play man coverage. He will press. He will do all the things that you want as a fan. You go, why are these guys 8 yards off the line of scrimmage? And that the players want to do too. And I think there's value there as well. Are there some players, whether it's new guys coming back, that you're locked in on? Hey, what is Dontavian Wicks going to do in year 2? Hey, what does Edgerrin Cooper look like when the pads come on? What are some of the guys where you're like, hey, I can't wait to see them in a live setting, what this all looks like?
Oh, I have so many that I'm like, do we
There's
have
a lot, right?
Like there's a lot. Okay, I'll start on defense because we've been talking about defense a lot. We see what Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary can do. I'm excited to see what Lucas Van Ness can do.
Good one.
Because he's coming into his second year. I think it was 4 sacks last year for him. New system, more aggressive approach. What can we get out of Lucas Van Ness? Because there's been a lot of hype around him this offseason. I think he delivers with a new system in Jeff Hafley. So I'm excited to see what he can do kind of in his sophomore jump. And then obviously Kalen King, like I mentioned earlier, I'm excited to see what he can do. Chip on his shoulder. He knows what he can do and he's going to prove it. So can you get the best out of this kid despite being a 7th round pick? Offensively, Dontavian Wicks, I think, has been a big name that's been circulated around during the offseason, rightfully so, right? I mean, you said it, like, this is such a stacked receivers core. And I know you put that tweet out about Romeo and it was no slight at all because this team literally is so stacked that it's like, where do you put everybody? So Dontavian,
you can put him in almost any order and I would not be surprised.
Right. Like they're all pseudo number ones kind of in my mind. But Dontavian Wicks, it's the body size, the route running, what he can do after the catch. I mean, that just excites you as a quarterback. And it gives Jordan Love so many options. So I'd say him. And then I think Marshawn Lloyd, I think I'm going to be excited to see what he can do. Again, you lose Aaron Jones. What can Marshawn do? He said he's the best player out of the draft. So can he prove it in his rookie season? And of course, Josh Jacobs, what does that tandem look like, right? With AJ Dillon. So there's a lot of guys.
And you won't know with running backs until those pads do start firing, because in shells, like it's just not the same. Is it too normie, especially for like my brand, to just be like, the answer is Jordan Love? Like, I just want to see Jordan Love in year 2. Like, I want to see what this looks like. Is there more out there for him? Because I certainly think there is. And like, I want him to just go out and light up training camp. Not that if he doesn't, I'm going to go, but I don't know, like it's just really exciting to think of how the season ended. Like if he can carry that over, this team, to your point, like they're a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, and that's not a normie answer at all because, we have probably 60 million, 55 million reasons to be excited per year for Jordan Love coming up, right?
Yes.
It's what does that contract extension look like? Because his team believes in him. That's why they're going to get it to him. Just a matter of when at this point. But you're right. I think the big thing outside of your skill position players, your defense is what's your quarterback look like in year two? Because he had such a good quote unquote rookie season as a first year starting quarterback that you want to see him exceed that, and you want him to say, hey, I deserve the 55 whatever $1 million a year that I'm hopefully going to get soon. So what can he do? What leaps can he make? How many touchdowns is he going to throw? How many is he going to run for? That is what I'm excited to see, is just to see him really master this offense even more in year two.
All right, so let me flip it a little bit. The thing that you're looking forward to get an answer to the most, like, hey, I don't really know what this is going to look like, whether it's this player, whether it's this idea, that you're just sort of like, I'm looking forward to see, someone's got to show this to me, like whatever it is, like what questions are you hoping to get answered in camp here?
Oh, that's a good question. I might say, what does this Packers starting five, what's their offensive line look like?
Yeah,
that would be an intriguing battle, right? Again, you draft Jordan Morgan. He comes in more as a left tackle, but then you have Rasheed Walker. So
it's really a Jordan Morgan question, right? Like, where is Jordan Morgan going to play if he's going to play?
Correct. So I want to see who's the best five that they're going to put out there, because again, if you're investing in your future in Jordan Love, you want to protect him and you want the run game to get going and you want him to have time to set up receivers. So that offensive line really, I think, not will make him break this offense, but they really will go a long way in determining if this offense can really put up 35 plus points a game if they want to. And so I think the offensive line will be a really interesting battle. Of course, Zach Tom is right tackle, and then you have Sean Ryan, maybe Josh Myers at center, and of course Elton left guard, and then it's that Rasheed Walker and Jordan Morgan battle at left tackle. If again, that's where they want him to play. So that's what I'm looking forward to seeing Matt LaFleur kind of solidify.
If you think about what your version of you think the best five is, how would you line up this group? Because I thought it was interesting. Elton Jenkins was asked, like, are you going to play left guard? And he was just sort of like, I guess we'll see. I don't know if he was hinting at something or if he just like really doesn't know, but that just sort of raised my eyebrow a little bit.
That was interesting because I think where he excels is that left guard position. But if he's kind of like, I don't know, it's not solidified, right? Because David Bakhtiari, he was your solidified left tackle. And you're never going to see him being like, yeah, I might play right guard or something, right? That's not going to happen. So the fact that Elton's even like, no, I'm like, so what are they doing? Like, how are they reshuffling?
Well, he's played everywhere.
Exactly. Like
he started right tackle, left guard, and center in his career already.
Right. And that's why they bring these guys in, is because they can play probably all five. But I just think Elton thrives at left guard. But if you don't have him there, who is that incumbent left guard for Jordan Love? So I don't know. I still think it's Elton, Josh Myers at center, Sean Ryan right guard, and then Zach Tom right tackle, and then it's that Rasheed Walker, Jordan Morgan piece. I don't know. This is why I'm not the head coach.
I'm coming from a place where I thought in the draft Jordan Morgan was a guard. The Packers think differently, but so I think the best five is Walker, Morgan, Jenkins, Ryan, Tom. Yes.
Oh, so you take out Josh Myers?
Yes, he's gotten some reps at center. He's played center. He played center as a rookie. When Corey Linsley was hurt, I just think like to me that's him going, I don't know, because I think he might be the center. I think that might be the best place for him. If they think Jordan Morgan is ready, like then you move out, and that's just I'm at this point right now I'm speculating. And maybe wish casting a little bit too, Lily, because I think that's kind of what I want to see. All right, we'll finish up here with Lily Zhao next. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app.
On defense, though, how do you think this plays out with the middle? Because we don't know who the two linebackers are going to be. We don't know who the two safeties are going to be. And so that's a lot of questions at the spine of your defense right now. And we don't have like any clue who it's going to be other than Xavier McKinney for sure. Everyone else, like the other three spots, are straight up for grabs.
That's a great question. I'm going to say in terms of just the DB's group, I should say, I think Eric Stokes is going to play a bigger role this year because we've talked about just how high Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst have been on him. And and he's improving. He's getting healthier. He's looking kind of more of like the kid that they drafted a couple years ago. So Eric Stokes will be in that DB's mix, but it's, you have Carrington Valentine. You have all these rookies coming in wanting to make a splash as well. But outside of Xavier McKinney and Jair Alexander, there's not really like a set in stone guy in that safety cornerbacks room. So that's what's really intriguing because you have so many different options you could play with back there. But what I want to see, though, is Xavier McKinney, though, right? Who's going to be his running mate and who's he going to be more comfortable with? Because that's going to be a big piece of the puzzle in terms of figuring out that group as well. And of course, Keyshawn Nixon, cornerback, he'll be in that mix as well. So that might be a big group to kind of focus on when training camp does start, because I think if Jeff Hafley can get that DB group shored up, it's going to be a lethal defense this year.
Yeah, Javon Bullard is certainly a name to watch. I mean, they didn't use a second-round pick on him for nothing. And then Edgerrin Cooper, I mean, look, I think they want him to play, but Isaiah McDuffie knows this coach, certainly. Quay Walker was a former first-round pick. Like, that's a lot of stuff that we gotta figure out in here. I don't know if we're going to know week one who that group is. Like, I don't think it's out of the question that we're going to have a lot of changes defensively in the first, 6 weeks of the season, 8 weeks of the season, even as they just try and put these pieces together. What is your, set some reasonable expectations for Eric Stokes for me, because I think back to his rookie season and I go, hey, he was really good. And I think that he was playing out of scheme with Joe Barry. It seems like Jeff Hafley is sort of the perfect fit for him. It's sort of like if he can't do it now, then he might just not be what we thought he could be.
Yeah, and that's a good point, right? Like, he wasn't playing in the most optimal position for him, and then of course the injuries really set him back.
Yeah, brutal.
But I think with the speed that he has and his ability to close, I think with where Jeff Hafley puts him really will help him kind of become that Eric Stokes player that he knows he can be and the one that we can see. And I think that's really why Hafley will be so great at this position, is because, like you mentioned, I don't think week one we're going to have every single position solidified as this is your bona fide starter for the rest of the year. That's a good problem to have, right? Because you have different pieces. But I think what Jeff Hafley will do, especially with Eric Stokes, is where's the best place to put these guys? Let's put them out there week one. If they're not succeeding, let's move them in the slot, et cetera, whatever, outside. See where they're really good, and let's find out the right group that way. So I think maybe having a new defensive coordinator like Hafley will certainly benefit Stokes in that regard.
You like to have a situation with a coach where you can say he will fit his players, not he needs to find players to fit his scheme. I hate when I hear someone talk about that, because it's not about that. It's about fitting the scheme to the players. And Jeff Hafley has been a little bit of a chameleon. Like, he's changed. He played a different way at Ohio State than he played at Boston College, then he coached at San Francisco, then in Cleveland. Like, he has adapted, and that adaptability I just think is so essential in coaching. We'll see if he can transfer it to the Packers this season. Lily, we will be back with you Soon we will start our weekly series again as we get closer to the season, but I'm so glad we got a chance to check in, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you, Peter.
All right. Thanks to Lily for joining the show. Outstanding as always to talk with her. More this week. Bailey Burmaster is going to join us later in the week for a rookie orientation series. We had to get in Javon Bullard before training camp starts. I still want to do an Edgerrin Cooper one. Still planning to do that. We did our offensive line with Brandon Thorne, though I was a little surprised. He did the offensive line rankings with Robert Mays recently, and they were pretty down on the Packers offensive line. And those are two guys who really know offensive line. So I was pretty surprised by that, but we'll see. We will see. And our pal Ty Dunn, hopefully coming on the show this week. So plenty more to come here on Locked On Packers before training camp starts in earnest. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook, all the social medias. We're on there. Instagram. You guys are killing it on Instagram right now. We're on TikTok for sure. YouTube. Let's see. Why do we do that? Well, we want you constantly connected to your phones. No, it's really one reason and one reason only. So you can stay Locked On Packers.